Pin drop silence overtook the huge hall, regardless of the nearly 50 people present in there. It was too quiet, even the sound of page flipping from a file after every 3 seconds echoed, as 49 people stared in absolute nothing, waiting for their boss to finish reading. Jungkook was in a meeting. One person stood at the other corner of the room in front of the projector as he just finished presenting. The file now landed in the boss's hand, and the little employee gulped in fear. No matter how confident he was over his presentation, the silence crawled such anxiety all over him. He wanted to throw out. Jungkook's phone vibrated on the table beside the file he was reading. The phone was upside down. He couldn't see who was calling and simply ignored it. A simple little vibration from the call was too loud and almost comforting to the boy who just presented. After a few rings, it stopped and continued to vibrate again. This time, Jungkook's focus was broke and he straightened up, grabbing his cell phone. Whoever it was must have a damn good reason to call him again after clearly getting ignored the first time. His vision of blood and torture disappeared into ease as he read his girlfriend's name on it, saved as Bun, with a tiny heart beside it. She practically fought with him to save this as her contact name. The phone stopped ringing, and this time he called back himself almost instantly. Jungkook, where are you? He heard before he could even say a word. It followed by sniffles and a heavy breath. Jungkook, are you crying? He closed the file, and when he heard another sniffle, he got off his seat. Jungkook, dismissed, he said and marched out of the room without giving his answer. The guy who gave the presentation almost cried out. Would he have to do this all over again? Jungkook, Bun, please tell me what is going on. His calm and comforting voice didn't match his raised steps as he rushed out of the building. Ryan, I'm in Professor David's office, and he locked the door from outside. Please come get me. He didn't know what the hell was going on, but he envisioned selling this David's organs and earning a huge sum from them. Jungkook, I'm almost there. When he reached her college, the security guard outside the gate stepped forward to stop him, since only college students in uniform or the teachers were allowed. Other than that, only guardians were allowed and they needed to provide a proof before entrance. As soon as the guard saw who he was, he almost screamed in horror. The terrifying man he only saw in news was actually standing in front of him. Jungkook, guide me to David's office. The other instantly did as he was told. He could die some other day. This was not in his wish list. Jungkook, get aside, Ryan. Once Jungkook reached there, he moved the guard away, as if he feared nothing, and with a kick, the door detached from the hinges, falling forward, meeting the ground with a loud thud. The first thing he saw was his girlfriend sitting on the ground, hugging her knees against the professor's desk. She had her hands covering her ears, probably due to the loud impact just now. Jungkook knelt down before her once he reached her and cupped her cheeks. Jungkook, are you okay? What happened? He stopped midway. His eyes took in the surroundings, a broken drawer, some blood on it, which he prayed didn't belong to wine, but it did. Her fingers had dried blood on it, and it only boiled his in his veins. Jungkook, bring me that David right now. He yelled towards the guard, who rushed away. It was his terror that made any person listen to him without doing much. Jungkook, what happened here, Ryan? Fine. My phone was in the drawer and it was locked. I was just trying to unlock it. It didn't work, no matter what I did. Jungkook took out a handkerchief and gently wrapped it around her fingers. Jungkook, and why are you locked here? To start with. In the meantime, while he checked if she had any other injuries, fingerprints on her neck and wrist. Her shirt was out of her skirt from one side, and it was obvious it was forcefully pulled out. Ryan, he called me here. I didn't know why. Then he locked the door and started to touch me wrongly. I tried to push him away. Then he got a call from the administration and left, locking me here. Even took my phone and locked it in the drawer. Ryan, I was too scared. I couldn't even get my phone to call you. I I thought he was going to come back and you wouldn't even know anything. Jungkook held her when her body started to shake and she started to cry. The time she spent here alone was probably worst, with her mind filled with all the worst scenarios that could happen if David returned. Jungkook pulled her in his embrace. Jungkook, hey, I'm here. Nothing will happen to you. Look at me. He kissed her cheek and wiped her tears. It didn't take Ryan long to calm down in his embrace. She knew the world might be coming to an end, but she was safe in his arms. Jungkook helped her up on the couch and gave her some water. When he turned, he found David there, looking at the scene with horror. A thick wooden door on the floor, as if it was some plastic. Jungkook stood up, eyed the man, and his hands balled into fists. He wanted to shoot him right there, but he didn't deserve an easy death. David's eyes fell on Ryan for a moment, and that's where Jungkook lost it. Jungkook, look away, Ryan. She did as she was told instantly. Jungkook marched towards David, slammed him against the wall, and pushed a pen deep inside his eye socket. The screams he let out were probably heard by the whole school. Jungkook, eyes off her. He pulled the pen out again and looked back once to make sure one wasn't looking. David, I'm sorry. I didn't know she was yours. I'm sorry. He begged and screamed for mercy as he cried out in fear like a loser. Jungkook, so what if she wasn't mine? Would you be proud of your move then? He slammed his head against the wall, then threw him to ground. Jungkook put his foot over the back of David's hand and pressed it until he heard the bones breaking. His eyes were on Vine, who was peacefully using her cell phone with AirPods in her ears, unaware of the things happening around. But it didn't mean she didn't have an idea of what might be going on. She knew who her boyfriend was after all. Vine always tried her best to stay out of his business. It was only going to cause problems in between them. They always understood each other and supported each other. Jungkook was always there for her, like he was now, maybe a little too violent when it came to her safety. He kicked David away like a piece of trash and wiped his hands coming to Ryan. He picked her up. It was too sudden. She let out a chuckle. It brought a smile to his lips. She knew what she had to do, so she dug her face on his neck with eyes closed as he walked out of the office, then the college. Later on, when everybody found out what happened in the college, they quietly dug the scene, since, after all, the professor was theirs, who tried to harass a student, and then above that, John Jungkook was involved. They couldn't do anything, even if they wanted to. Jungkook brought wine home and applied ointment on her neck and wrist, then treated her fingers. He also made a cup of coffee for her with his own hands. It was his first time in kitchen, and God knows how many times he was yelled at by Ryan for messing up in those 10 minutes. Madam, he called respectfully, offering her the coffee, made of his blood, sweat, and tears. He was glad he was able to distract her. She took it happily and wrapped her legs around his torso as she was sitting on the kitchen counter. She took the sip, and it might not be really great, but it was good for the first try. Wine. This is really good. I guided you well. She grinned and placed it aside to let it cool a little. Jungkook, of course, Your Highness. What would I do without you? She laughed and pecked his lips, and Jungkook caressed her thigh, while the two enjoyed the noon with coffee and a little swimming date after that.